Uncle Ron stuff. This is part two of, I think it was episode 35 about taxes. And I realized after I got all done, there's so many taxes, I forgot about half of them. But two, sort of, one specifically, and that is Social Security tax. It's six something percent on your pay, and for a lot of people, that is, they don't even have income tax deduction, but they have Social Security tax deduction. I'm talking about poor people, okay? If they make a paycheck, they work for the man, that has to be taken out. So poor people not only have to pay Social Security tax, they also have to pay sales tax. And looking around, sales tax can be 7.5% in some cities. And I think even New York, there's a county and there's a city tax. Some places you have both. So anyway, poor people and Social Security, it's there is a maximum income limit on it. I would be surprised if they just don't remove that. That would be an easy loophole to close. So instead of only collecting on the first 200,000 or whatever it is, they just collect on it all. 6.4% goes in the Social Security fund, and it is a separate fund. Uh, it is put on the budget. I don't know particularly why, because it has its own treasury debt. That's all it's allowed to invest in, which, yeah, that's, yeah. Well, I mean, the credit of the U.S. government is AAA plus, right? Anyway, back on my apple pie example, what I forgot was two major things, a lot of them actually, but one is insurance. Every one of those companies involved in the growing, transporting, uh, turning it into a pie, uh, wholesaling it, retailing it, they all had insurances of various kinds. Uh, Liabilities insurance, they had uh, the health care, if they had provide health care for their workers, they have to pay that. Um, anyway, all kinds of insurance. And insurance companies, of course, are in the business of making profit. So uh, they have to, whatever the cost that the company has to pay for insurance, they have to put that in there someplace and add profit to it. The insurance companies, I just got a homeowner bill. Actually, it was for cars. And the cars have gone up $200 for 6 months. And that's a significant increase on me. That's 20, 30% or something. And why? Because of inflation. The repair costs. That was the other thing on the apple pie. If you have insurance, you also have all these repairs that have to be done. The vehicles break down, machinery breaks down, blah, 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 blah. Somebody has to repair that stuff. I think the current labor charge around here for Goodyear service is $105 an hour. Now, the worker guy is getting 20 maybe, 30, not even 30, I don't know. And then he's got his medical benefits and blah, blah, blah. So they're charging $105 an hour for labor, and that lets them get some profit on that guy, which they need to pay all the stuff they have to pay to keep that facility there and pay corporate taxes. Okay. Anyway, uh, insurances and repair costs, and everything that I talked about before comes into play. Every one of those people that work at Goodyear, which do the service for which they get paid whatever it is, uh, I don't, it's more than minimum wage, I suspect, but nonetheless, they um, they all paid income taxes, they paid property taxes, real estate taxes. They all, you know. So on every conceivable thing, they're, the government's got their hand out for their share. Actually, they got their hand out getting back their money from you. Um, Again, it's like working in the fields. They take all the crop, they give you some to live with. This is just the reverse of that, except you make the money or you produce the crop. They take uh, their share of it, and it depends. You know, they always want more of their share because they're providing you more services, right? Um, Tax the rich. That's the answer to all of it. We got all these poor people, and we got all these rich people, and they should pay their fair share. You hear that all the time. Corporations, greedy corporations. They should pay more, and wealthy taxpayers should pay more. I say go ahead, sure. I looked it up and I did a quick calculation, and I'm probably wrong, but it's close anyway. You take all of the assets of the top 10 richest people in the United States. You take everything, every dime, everything they own, which is really mainly stock. But anyway, you take all that and you get a little over $1 trillion. That, if you took it all at one time, that would pay for DOD with some amount of money left over, but it would not even pay the federal government annual budget. If you took every dime of the richest people. Now, I don't know how far down you go. If you took every dime from the top 5%, every dime, every year, would that pay for the federal budget? I don't know. I haven't calculated numbers. I doubt if it would. That's It's a good political slogan, but the reality of it is that isn't going to solve the problem. The problem being spending too much. Uh, yeah, we have interest on the debt we have to pay. We spend lots and lots of money on defense, and in the budget is Social Security or Medicare. And then we have something that was originally not planned for was Medicaid. And Medicaid is a big expenditure. If Medicare was and is supposedly paid for out of that Social Security tax that's collected on your paycheck every time, uh, then I don't know particularly why it's on the budget, but anyway, it is there. Medicaid was it. There's no tax collected per se for Medicaid. That is a federal budget item, and it's big. I don't think it's quite as big as what they show as Medicare on the budget. I don't know why, again, they show it on the budget because it's supposedly paid for out of the trust fund set up for Social Security, but Medicaid is not. And I like how the feds do this. When Obamacare came along, they told the states if the states signed up, because Medicaid is actually, the rules about it are implemented at the state level. That was something Reagan did. He just gave block money to a state, and they decided who would qualify for Medicaid in their state instead of the federal doing it. And that's a good idea. You know? It varies from state to state, and some states are pretty. So you have people moving from one state to another just because they can't get Medicaid in one state or another. Anyway, that is an unfunded. There's no There's no specific tax, if you will, for Medicaid. There is for Social Security. Anyway, I think the spending on Medicaid is almost as much as what the budget item shows for Social Security. Taxes, taxes, taxes. I told you about the insurances. I told you about repairs. There's about 1,000 other items that are involved in the manufacture or adding value to that grain and apples. All of it gets taxed multiple times. Taxes are paid on top of taxes. If you can't tax the rich to solve the problem, take every dime. Uh, in my wildest dreams, if you took every dime from, I don't know, anybody makes over $200,000, let's say that. If you took every dime every year, it would not pay the federal budget. They still spend more than all of that combined. And remember, the top 5%, they paid the 98% or 80% of all federal income taxes already. Paying their fair share, well, if you look at it from that perspective, they already pay their fair share. Now, in the book Atlas Shrugged, and I'm John Galt, those people rebelled. They were being coerced and basically, laboring in the fields. The powers that be took all the produce and left them scrap. And they said, I don't need to do this anymore. I'm not working for you anymore. Uh, in Venezuela, they nationalized the oil industry. They got rid of Mobil and all those people that were there. They said they could just cut out the greedy, evil middleman and the government on the oil industry, and the people would benefit from the profits of that oil industry that Venezuela was going to run. Well, all the people that made the big money for Exxon or whoever it was in there running those oil fields, they all left. So they put the military in charge of running the oil refineries. Well, they didn't know the first thing about oil refineries. You really do have to have experienced, skilled people somewhere to manage and also have those skill sets to operate it. Well, they didn't have that anymore. So there for a while they did. They kept some of the people. They cut the management out, and they thought they'd manage it. And then the people at the lower end, the skilled set people, the welders and the pipe fitters, and all this, they just left. Okay, so since then, Venezuela has not produced enough oil to. They just it's. I think it points out the fact taxing the rich. If increasing excise tax on yachts to 50%, the thought was, well, it won't make any difference. They'll buy them anyway. But it did. I think the same thing comes into play if you continually try to get every dime somehow or another from wealthy people. They'll just put up with it. I'm not so sure. There are other places to live in the world, and they might be more inclined. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me. Over the years, you ever heard about the brain drain? The smart people being recruited from one country to work in another country because we needed smart people. Well, those people that have all the wealth, they're not. They could pull up stakes and go to Canada, or they could go somewhere else where there's limited or no income taxes or other kind of taxes. Uh, they're not forced to stay here. Now, you might try. You can make a law that says if you have over this much money in the bank, you can't leave. The government can do whatever it wants, and they might do that. But anyway, taxing the wealthy and corporations. I already said you put more tax on corporations. Everybody thinks, well, that's a great idea. Who pays? Those are for profit. They have to raise the prices. Who pays for that tax? You do. In a roundabout way. There's no way around it. We're for profit. I forgot about fees. Besides taxes, The government has all sorts of fees, use fees of all kinds. Every time you go to national park, there's a fee. Used to be free, but now there's a fee. And that's supposed to help run the park. I don't know what happened to the taxes were collected. It was supposed to be put over. That money was better spent on cruise missiles, I guess. We got to have our defense. I talked about what do you get out of taxes. I doubt you've thought any more about it. But I did forget, we do get EPA out of our federal taxes, and we get food safety, and we get drug administration overlooks the drugs. They overlook, EPA is looking at the atmosphere and water, and food safety. There are inspectors and looking at food qualities and so on. And that is a valid federal responsibility if you think about it. Yeah, each state probably has their own thing too, but food is shipped from one state to another state. The air moves from one state to another state. The water moves from one state to another state. And drugs, of course, that's critically important. And trials for chemical drugs, for any kind of healthcare drug, can last for years and cost, $1 billion to develop one drug, which may not, they want to get their money back, so they price the drug up, and then, I think there's some drugs that cost like $5,000 a dose. It's a miracle drug, but they own the patent on it. And we get patent and trademark office for our federal tax dollars. It was interesting when I looked at the budget. One of the biggest departments in terms of budget is the Treasury Department. I think it's like, I forget, 3 billion. It's more than that. They're the biggest one. And what do? They just collect taxes, Treasury Department. They also, part of that, they oversee banks. There are things you get out of your income tax money, all these taxes. There are things. As I said, there's loans, student loans. There's home mortgages that the government subsidizes. Veteran benefits, big chunk of money gets put on veterans benefits, and that was a promise made to them when they were recruited or drafted. And so you get stuff out of it. You have to remember the government they're not in it for a profit. So yeah, they have budget constraints. They come up with a budget and what they want to spend it on. But they also, if they don't spend all that budget, they don't get to keep that money. They have to turn it back in. So what do they always do? They're always going to be spending all the budget requests that they put in and get approved for. There's no pressing issue like there is in a corporation to make a profit. They can't do it anymore if they can't make a profit. In the federal government, they don't have that problem. They don't have to be efficient. They do not have to be efficient. They can add more people. They can increase their budget. They can say we need more money. It's a different animal entirely. That's why I'm not real keen. I mean, think about anything the federal government gets involved with disaster relief, emergency preparedness. They do that as well. They don't do it very well. They can show up days, weeks later. Train derailment not long ago. That was a terrible, EPA and National Transportation Safety Board and all those people. They should have been on site 10 minutes after it happened. It took them days, weeks. EPA and National Transportation is certainly better than EPA. But, those are some of the things you get. And you get a lot of stuff, regulation. Utilities are regulated. They're like a monopoly. There's only one electric source in the region you lived in, probably. So the regulation, federal, state, whatever, it says basically how much profit they can make. Okay? And that's all they get. And they're fine with that. And periodically they go into some commission and say, hey, I need more money. The coal, the fuel, I got to put new transmission lines in, blah, 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 blah. I need some more money. Can you up the percentage that I get? The government regulates that. The government regulates a lot of stuff. They command and demand. With health insurance, they're always saying, well, you need to do this. The health insurance is going to have to require to cover this or that. Okay, so what happens to health insurance costs? Remember, they have to make profit. They go up. There's no way around it. I mean, it sounds so good. Yes, and it does benefit some who need that coverage that the government has now mandated. Okay, but in the end, yes, they got that coverage. Yes, they get that medicine, but their taxes go up, and the cost of the thing goes up for everybody else. Anyway, enough of the tax thing. You understand the situation. I don't have any answer to it. Uh, Taxing the rich or the corporations, especially corporations, as long as they're a for-profit corporation, corporate taxes going up are going to cause inflation. The price is going to go up. My car insurance just went up $200 for 6 months because repairs have gone up. The materials for the repairs have gone up. Why? Because of all of the taxes that are being collected everywhere around the world on the raw materials, the steel ore, the metal ore, all the way to it being bent into a fender that goes on your car. Uh, 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 Energy costs. Part of it is energy costs. When gasoline goes up, it impacts everything. Diesel, fuel, electricity. When it goes up, it impacts the cost of everything. Every one of those people who added value to that apple pie have got to pay increased energy costs. They got to bundle it into the price and pay more. The government, I don't know. It was just we were. That's what I was told. We were energy independent before the current administration took over, and they bumped that. I, you know, I. So what happened? Drove the cost of fuel up, and that drove the price of everything else up. That's a major factor is fuel, energy expenses, and every aspect of manufacturing or providing a service. So anyway, enough of this today. I might add it on, I might not, but uh, the federal government. I don't know. They, 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 we're their children. Uh, they have to protect us. What I just don't like is you're in the field doing all the work. They come and take more and more of it, and leave you less and less. I mean, don't you get sick of it? You're working for them, not for yourself anymore or the man, really. I mean, anyway, taxes, this is part 2, and I'm done for the day. I need to go back to the dirt. Bye-bye.